Welcome to Stoughton Media Access Cable's Community Forum Show. My name is Steve Kelley, and I'll be your host today as we explore the world of the big tiny houses. So today we're at the Trackside Plaza, which is hosting the 3rd annual Big Tiny House Festival. What this involves are a movement of people who are dedicated to minimalism, they're dedicated to affordability and sustainability. I think it's terrific. I hope that as you sit back and relax, that you pick up some pointers on what you might do to your own house or how you might even support a movement like this. So as you can see, if you look back behind me, you'll see this wonderful tiny house. It's just one example, and we're going to take you right through from each house that's here, and we hope you enjoy the show. Well, I'm here with Miranda Aisling, and she's the owner of Aubergine, which is a beautiful tiny house that she has built by herself. And she has a curious name for it, Aubergine. Would you explain what that is?
Sure. So Aubergine is based on the color of the house on the outside. The reason we ended up painting it that color is that I have always lived in very bright houses, but when you have a tiny space, if you paint your walls a bright color, it makes it smaller. So I compromised by painting my interior walls a beige and the outside bright purple.
And purple aubergine is?
Aubergine is French for eggplant.
Eggplant, the
my
purple.
My sister's girlfriend pointed that out to me. She said, "Oh, you should name your house that." And so I did.
How nice. Now, that brings out the creative in you, okay? So this is not only about, let's say, sustainability and minimalization, living minimally, but it's also about creative, right? And you really focus on your energies on being creative. I'm even just seeing to you behind you is this beautiful colored drapery. It's purples and blues, yellows, oranges, reds, and pinks. Yeah. I mean, that's really like your insides coming out almost. So tell the audience a little bit about how this answers your needs, this whole movement of tiny houses.
Sure. So I originally came to tiny houses for a much less colorful reason, which was economic responsibility. I decided to build it because I had enough savings to be able to build and own my own home. But from there, the fact that I'm an artist led me to create my house as a piece of public art. So while I led the building, we actually had over 50 volunteers who helped us build it over the course of the year on the front lawn of the Umbrella Community Art Center in Concord, Massachusetts. And then not only did we build the house as a piece of art, but we filled it with art. So everything you see around you was handmade by a person, as much as I could do. So I painted my guitar case here. This drapery behind us is a piece of Tyvek. That's a curtain painted by Max Payne, who's an artist up in Concord, Massachusetts.
Wow.
If you forgive the reach.
Another use of Tyvek that probably most people wouldn't think of.
Yeah, she does beautiful, beautiful artwork that's very durable because it's painted on Tyvek.
Nice.
We have a hand-woven quilt here made by Barbara Willis, also up in Concord, Massachusetts. So the important thing for me is that because I went small, everything that I have has more meaning because I have less of it. So my door over here is a mahogany wood door handmade by John Schmallenberger. And I can afford a mahogany handmade door because I only have one door.
Yeah,
if I had six doors, I would not be affording that.
Wow. So as I look around just in this house, I see a lot of space. I almost, it looks like a 9 or maybe 10 foot ceiling?
I think it's over 10 feet, yeah.
Yeah. So you can do jumping jacks. You can.
Yes.
I mean, this is a big place, and a lot of convertible items. Tell me what this converts to. I'm just guessing. I don't know yet.
Yep.
It has to convert to something.
Yep, so this love seat, it was actually just put in by a woodworker named Alex Janes. And so these drawers pull out, and then there's a seating cover on what we're sitting on. So what you can do is there are 2 drawers. You can pull out so your legs can go up. You can put 2 in a row so it becomes a twin-size bed.
Aha.
Or you can stack them and they become stairs to get up to the storage loft.
So this section is a storage loft.
Yep.
And in the other section, you have a loft that's actually suitable for a queen-size bed, I heard you say.
Absolutely, yep.
So if you could like encapsulate the freedom that you've gotten from this, what would you say?
The first thing is I don't pay rent. I put all of the money in. I have a really, really wonderful woman who lets me park on her property and is giving back by letting me park there. But I think apart from the kind of cut and dry economics of it, there's a sense of ownership that someone takes over their life when they've built their own home. I know every stud, I know every wire, I know what it took to cut our slightly crooked lines in the plywood that covered the walls.
Yes.
And all of those imperfections, all of those stories, it makes my house feel like a home. Because whenever I'm in this house, I look around this room and I see over 100 people who have contributed to 160 square feet. And so every time I step inside, I am welcomed home by an entire community through their effort and their artwork.
So the vibe there is really good.
Yeah,
You're
it
connected
really is.
to like a divine vibe. I have a question. I hope you could take a shot at it.
I'll try.
Whether you believe in Trump or you don't, what advice would you give the president around the issue of affordability, and so that that message could be spread to everybody?
I think if you're really interested in business, you have to be able to make affordable ways for people to live so they can take the risks to make a business. So if I were talking directly to Trump as a businessman, I'd try and play to that interest and say, look, I'm an entrepreneur. I work full time. I live in my house. I live in an affordable house so that in my free time I can take the risk to start a business that hopefully within 10 to 20 years will employ over 20 people and bring huge economic viability and communal viability to a town through art.
So tell us about your business. You've opened that door.
Sure.
It's worth shining the spotlight on you so that you can be successful.
Thank you. So my business is called Miranda's Hearth. We're the organization that's coordinating the festival with yourself. Our long-term goal is to start the first community art hotel. So the concept is to have a hotel where everything from the furniture to the food to the curtains is handmade by local artists. And then when you come and stay, you can decide that you love this lovely blanket and buy the blanket that's in your room.
Or learn how to make it.
Or meet the woman who made it and learn directly from that woman how to make it for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's that sense of connectivity and rootedness that I get from being in this house is something that I'm hoping to give anyone who visits the Community Art Hotel through the connection to the artists. And through doing so, we'll also create an infrastructure that supports artists as small businesses, because suddenly this weaver is selling blankets to all of the tourist guests.
Wonderful. So as we leave the interview, what advice would you give an aspiring tiny house owner? Somebody who's like, put their toe in the water, not sure. What would you say?
I'd say jump in. And I'd say I like to do something I call blackmailing myself.
Tell us about this. Sounds like a great technique. I don't think we want to use it for other people, but ourselves, I think for ourselves, I love it. What is it?
Yes.
What does it entail?
So what you do is you make yourself publicly accountable or economically accountable to a big project. This was a huge project. It took hours and hours and hours. I had never built anything before. I actually worked so hard that I ended up with pneumonia in the ER.
Over a year it took you, right?
Over
I mean, it's not just hours. I mean, I don't know how many hours in 365 days times 24. I mean, it's...
Yeah, it was a lot of time. It was a lot of money. It was a lot of stress on my relationships because people were supporting me. And if I hadn't agreed to do it as a public art project, if I hadn't paid that first couple of grand on the trailer, it would have been really easy to back out. So blackmailing yourself is creating a big commitment so you can't back out. I know somebody who the very first thing they bought for their house was their wood stove. It was a couple $1,000s of an investment, and they wouldn't be able to use it until they finished the whole house. So I think that's a perfect example.
And I would also say enlist your family.
Oh, yeah.
And we've met your mom,
Yes.
Amy. So she's very proud of you, and I think it's a terrific thing. So
Thank
on
you.
that note, we'll head off to look at more of these wonderful tiny houses.
All right, well, I'm
Thank you
excited.
for your time.
Thank you.
So as you saw from the earlier part of our interview, the outside of the house, I'm now with Ann Mellon from Tiny Living Spaces on the inside of her gorgeous home. I see a kitchen in my background, and it's just beautiful. And tell us about it. How did you get here?
Well, you know, I watched a lot of tiny houses being built, and I thought this is sort of the next big thing. I have a couple kids that are millenniums, and you know, millenniums just don't own houses because they're so expensive and they change jobs so frequently. And so I think that this is a way that young people can own houses, and it's kind of fun. And we like designing and having a good time.
Yeah, so I love the affordability. I love that it's a movement and a community as well. It's so different from, say, what I would have envisioned or thought about in my early 20s. When you graduated from high school, could you have seen yourself sitting here in a tiny house doing what you're doing?
No, not at all. I actually, when I graduated from high school, I was a nurse, and later I went into sales. And you know, I think people thought buying big houses was great, and I think now we're really looking at downsizing and having a smaller footprint. And I think it's a really neat movement. But no, I never saw myself building tiny houses.
Okay, so you actually put on the construction apron, the hammers, and you did this house.
Actually, we designed it. We do have a contractor we work with, although I did put up the ceilings with him, and I did a lot of painting, and I carry a hammer here and there, so we've been having a good time doing it. But
Now
mostly
you
doing
mentioned
design.
we, so there's
So
Sue.
Sue Schoenfeld is actually the one that does most of the designing. She is great with colors. When you see the house that this one and the other one we built, she does all the designing and the colors, and has done an amazing job with it.
Now tell me about the furniture. You're sitting in a couch, and I noticed there's a lot of multi-use things in these houses. So is there something multi-use about the couch you're sitting in?
Yeah, one of the things we find in tiny houses is that everything has to have more than one use, and you have to use every bit of the space that you have. So this couch is very functional. It's got things under here that pull out so that you can put your feet up. There's storage under here. It also pulls out into a spare bed. There's room for a queen bed up in the loft. There's a table hanging over here so you have a place to eat. So there's a desk with storage space. So there's all kinds of room to put things in this house.
Okay, I also think that I saw earlier when we first walked in that you had a special sort of a repository for a TV.
We do.
Yeah, I wonder, can you like make that happen?
Yes, let me show you.
Hopefully
This is
that our
pretty neat.
camera can catch it over to my
Right.
left.
We have this beautiful
ahead.
spot right here, but when you want to watch TV, you just have to raise it up right there, and here you have a spot to
Wow,
watch TV.
there goes the flowers.
It's pretty
And-
steady, so it moves right up. It kind of blocks the light from the window, so when you're watching TV,
watching
you're
is
all
better.
set. So-
And what size is that? It looks like a 35 or a 42?
I think it's a 42-inch.
Yeah, 42-inch TV.
Yeah. So a nice big
And-
TV for
and
a
it's-
tiny house.
Now, are you also able to view it from in here?
You can,
Oh,
if you'd rather, you can
okay.
open it up, or if you have to do anything to it, there's ways to
So
get
that
at
gives
it.
you a little better viewing
Right.
angle. Are you a sports fan? Do you watch the Patriots?
I am not a big sports
You're not a
fan.
sports
No, I hate to say that.
Okay. So tell us about how you power the house, because a part of affordability is what we all have to pay for utilities, how
Right.
much space. In this case, we
Yeah.
don't have to heat,
Yeah.
and also tell us. So first of all, power.
Okay, so this house is what we would call on the grid. It's 100%, you plug it into electric. It does have a heating unit, an air conditioning unit, it also works as a dehumidifier, so it's pretty efficient. It's all blown in insulation, so it's very efficient as far as heating. We do work with someone that will do solar power, so if somebody's looking for a house that they want a solar power, we can do that.
And this house is for sale.
This house is for sale, yes, this is for sale.
I didn't know if you wanted to commit to a price in
Yeah.
an interview.
Sure.
Okay.
So right now we have it on the market for $84,900.
Okay.
We are running a show special for $79,900. So if someone's interested, we can certainly negotiate with them.
Okay. So it's an on-the-grid house.
Right.
All right. It's way below what you'd have to pay for a house in place.
Right.
Right. So it's at least half of that.
Right.
So it makes it affordable. Tell us a little bit about. Do you do anything with solar on this house?
Yes, we don't. This particular house is not set up for solar, but we can put solar panels on it. So if someone was interested in solar, we can certainly do that. Also, we have a regular toilet here, but if somebody wanted a composting toilet, it's all set up so we could easily switch it out to a composting toilet.
Okay.
We also have a spot for a dishwasher if someone wants one. It's not put in, but it's all plumbed for it. And we also have a spot for a washer and dryer combo. So if somebody wants that, it's all plumbed and ready to put one of those into.
So right in the house, you can have washer, dryer, dishwasher,
Everything.
Stove, of course.
Stove's all set. Yep. Stove
What's your-
and microwave.
What's your favorite part of the house? I mean, lighting or what is it?
Oh,
One
I'll tell you,
thing.
I think the coloring is my favorite. I love the white and the gray together. I love the brightness of it. It feels like when you're in here, you're not in a tiny house. I've had so many people come in and they say, what's the size of this house? And I say, it's 275 square feet. And they say, wow, it feels more like it's 600 square feet.
Yeah, there's a tall ceiling.
It's a tall ceiling. It's got a lot of space, so it feels like it's very roomy. And there's lots of place to put your things, and it's comfortable. I think the couch is really comfy, and it really can meet anyone's needs.
Well, this has been a real pleasure to interview. I want to end with sort of a funky question. Okay. If you could talk to someone 100 years from now, what would your message be to them?
Live simply.
Live simply.
Yes.
And on that note, that's a wonderful way to do the interview. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're here with Deke Diedrichson, and Deke is sort of the very first of the Stoughton people that I'm aware of that became involved in the tiny house movement.
Yeah.
So, Deke, this is a great tiny house. I understand you've built it recently.
Yeah, we're actually doing this for a documentary film, myself and Alex Eves, a filmmaker, boxtruckfilm.com. We don't really have a title yet, but the whole process from sourcing the materials to building it to finding ways to implement these reused materials is all chronicled in what will be a documentary film.
So you would be able to obviously create a house that would be much less expensive with your dumpster diving,
Yes.
right? Creating the floor out of old signs from a concert. What other kind of places did you
Well, there's a
derive?
lot of local ties too, which is cool because it really has brought, there's the whole sense of community. You reach out, you tell people your project, and people come out of the woodwork, want to help. This floor here, believe it or not, Gary Lewis, who used to run the Honeydew in town.
Yeah, I know
This is
Gary.
leftovers from Honeydew Donuts on the floor. This dresser drawer was in my kid's dresser before it broke. We saved some pieces. There's a Mighty Mighty Boss Tone sign from a concert in the 90s in the floor.
Yeah.
Leftover plywood from a build that Pam Carr out of Stoughton had. Dumpster dive, canning cupboard, you name it. This is an old ladder piece as shelving that's from the Stoughton Theater that they were getting rid of.
Okay.
And on and on.
And so,
yeah.
and so the message here is not only affordable, but reused, recyclable materials.
Yeah, I mean, basically, recycling only goes so far. There's still a lot of waste produced when recycling or energy loss, but by actually straight reusing stuff, you're a leg up on the whole process, environmentally at least. What Alex and I, again, Alex Eves, like about this is there's, as I just told you, there's like a story behind everything in this place. This wood right here,
Yeah.
just by asking, this is from the Fuller Craft Museum, an internationally recognized museum. This used to line their auditorium in the 60s and early 70s, and they had it in storage forever. I randomly asked them as they were donating materials, you don't happen to have any wood we could use as trim, this and that? Like, wait, we actually have a ton of cedar that's been sitting here for 40 years.
Wow.
Please take it. They felt they were doing, we were doing them a favor by taking it, but it's quite the opposite. So we just went, the materials dictated the build. We went with this stuff and other things we found. Maybe
Tell
went
me
a little
about the
bit.
roof.
Yeah, the roof. The great thing about doing a box truck conversion or even a shipping container, which is very similar, is that the thing, in theory, is watertight from the start. This wasn't.
In theory.
We found out at one point in time,
Okay.
after we started insulating one of the walls, that water was getting in through this little pinhole, and we had to pull out a ton of insulation, start over on one wall, which was infuriating. But the roof here, the ceiling, like I said, is just patchwork plywood. It has this like quilted kind of look. Luckily, we could paint it in a uniform color. Reuse paints, by the way, recolor. It's a local business. They take paints from, those like hazardous material
Yeah,
days
yeah.
and from people donating them paint crews and make brand new paint out of it and colorize it. It's all reused paint as well.
So wow, this is
So,
fantastic.
The
So
insulation, everything.
Right.
It's like castaways from construction
what's
projects.
your R value here, for instance? You have a guesstimate?
Yeah,
Is
it's
it
actually
13 or?
Yeah, it's that or above because we lost a little space by having a box in every side of this. It's insulated. You know, the ceiling, the floor. R13. I mean, if I had to guess, probably a little more than that. Probably R15 or so. I mean, if you exhale too much in here, you're going to warm the place up. You know, we joke you can heat it with a birthday cake.
All
You
right.
probably could.
Okay, so differentiate for me the difference between this and a mobile home. What's the
Well,
difference?
yeah, okay. People ask that. I mean, this is like certainly a deviation from the tiny houses you see in the TV show. It's it's a box truck converted, and it's not the first one that's been done. But mobile homes, RVs, campers, people often ask, well, that tiny house costs X amount of dollars. I can get one for a fifth of that price. But RVs and mobile homes are not usually built for full-time use. They're built for occasional, seasonal use. The insulation value is terrible. It's poor. And they're usually cheaply built. It's just like Eli Whitney, interchangeable parts, coming off the assembly line.
Okay.
So they're built very light and cheaply, which is an advantage in some cases, but not for full-time use. Houses like some of the ones you're seeing here, some of these are decked out with insulation. So you could go and live in Alaska with some of the ones I've been in if you wanted to, like the Siberia tiny house.
All right, now are you going to sell this house, or what's the plan for this house?
No,
after the documentary.
So Alex previously directed a film called Reuse Because You Can't Recycle the Planet.
Yep.
And originally he wanted to build a vehicle and do a short little almost YouTube video of us building this so we can travel with it, show the movie, even project it on the side of the truck in good weather.
Oh, that's nice.
And use this as a living educational tool.
Okay.
So what he does, he's walking the walk, living the life, and people get to tour this while he does his screenings. So that's the premise. The truck was the main expense. It was $7,000 and change from U-Haul, decommissioned. All the stuff you see in here, everything, I would say, well under $1,000.
Oh my goodness.
So, because it's all found, it's all stuff that people were throwing out, and we just, took scrap wood and cobbled it into different tables that unfold. We, went to the town recycling center. You'd find some old hardware, folding legs. You'd be amazed at the stuff you find on the side of the road.
I think that's great.
Yeah, so I mean, just about everything. I mean, this is a handle that's a drumstick. So there's a lot of stories like I'm a drummer, so we put that in there. That door to the bathroom, it's a composting toilet, a wet bath. That's a skateboard deck, or like the axle to a skateboard.
Yeah.
These are Lincoln logs as a closet pole because we found some at a yard sale.
Yeah, just unique stuff that really gives character.
Vintage fruit boxes, all the art's handmade. Most of it I did, but we're later going to implement some other artists into it to showcase their work.
So shift gears with me for a minute. You're married. You've got kids.
Yeah.
How do they feel about this?
Oh, they love it. If anything, though, my kids are like spoiled rotten in the sense they've gone to so many tiny house conventions.
Yes.
And I travel a lot through my YouTube channel, which is relaxshacks.com, to film tours.
That's relaxshacks.com.
Yes.
But we want people to know how to
fast,
reach you. No, we want them to know how to reach you. You're doing something valuable.
Yeah.
Trying to create affordable and sustainable housing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Recycling. This is revitalizing all of us by doing this. So that's great.
Well, it's
so your
environmental, but you're infusing character too. But the kids, they get to tour around, and they've stayed in so many houseboats, tree houses, tiny houses.
Yep.
So it's been very fun for them. They love it. They're coming to the
your
festival.
Wife. What about your wife?
So my wife is cool with it. She's a saint. She's very tolerant because my backyard, I joke, is like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. It's like Sanford and Son meets the apocalyptic future of like street-side waste.
So one of those control freak wives wouldn't like it.
No.
And people are probably going to get mad at me for saying, there is such a thing? I don't believe it. No, there's no control freak wives. But go ahead.
Well, in my defense, though, I will say that when I start getting, because my yard's very small, I start getting too much stuff, I eventually will find an excuse to use all these materials, build it into something, and sell it. And every single structure I've ever built, every single one of them is sold. Right now, I'm working on a couple of them in the backyard, and it's getting a little bit Jenga-like or jigsaw-like because I only have like a fifth of an acre.
All right.
So I'm going to have to start stacking them, I think.
I want to kind of close up the interview by asking you kind of a special question. So this movement has taken a long time to develop.
Yeah.
Take me back 2 generations ago.
Okay.
If you could speak to your grandfather,
Yeah.
20 years old, he's 20. If you could go back to him, what would you say to him that would help this come along? How would you have had him change your dad's mind about things so that, in other words, where does that all put us?
See, in my case, it's going to be different because my parents were both school teachers, very frugal, and I grew up in a very small house. Like I shared a bedroom with my brother that was 10 by 10 feet up into decent ways in the high school. So for me, it was never a problem.
Would you have them become a senator and start legislating?
Nah.
What would you have? What would have made the difference now that in other words, you could maybe project this movement forward now by doing certain things. What could they have done? I'm just curious.
Well, the thing is, back then in my grandfather's time, during the Depression, post-Depression, people were living fairly modest lives back then and would, out of frugality, recycle a lot, reuse stuff. And somewhere along the lines, we lost sight of that. I think a lot of it was the TV shows, the media, and that image that was portrayed or projected that you're not successful if you don't own the multiple cars and the giant house and you don't eat so-and-so kinds, enjoy Coca-Cola, it's for winners. And somehow along the lines, I think people fell prey to that more is better. When in actuality, I live in a small house right now. I actually just paid off my house this month. So, so
Congratulations.
And I bought every car I've ever owned in cash. I owe no one a dime.
And it's a parking lot back there.
Yeah. So I guess there's something to be said for that lifestyle. But yeah, I would try to tell them the stories of what I'm experiencing now. I'm not a rich man, but I travel all the time. Like internationally,
and also can bring your family and make family part of your life too. And
yeah,
that's really
I think a lot of people see the way I live in this small house, like, oh, you poor soul, I feel so bad for you poor. I'm like, I just took my kids to Paris on vacation. I'm like, it's because I spend nothing in my house and all my income goes towards eating out in town and traveling because I can, because I don't, because I live in a small house.
And paid off your mortgage.
Yes. But less to heat, less to maintain, less to furnish, less to insure, they're just on and on and on and on with a smaller house. So.
Well, thank you very much for the interview. That is very
always
exciting.
a pleasure, Steve. Thank
Fabulous
you.
Job.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. We're here with Holly Fodge, and Holly is one of the representatives here for Carpentry for Women. So I'm kind of excited because we always associate carpentry and men, and Carpentry for Women is really about empowerment for women, and they can do a lot of things we don't think they can do. So Holly, if you could speak to that for a minute, what got you excited about like Carpentry for Women and helping out in that vein?
So I was already interested in just empowering women in general. And then I met Maria, and she is the owner of Hammerstone. And she was talking about how I think women make up like 3% or less than 3% of the carpentry world. So clearly there's a huge disparity there. And so I'm not a carpenter, but if I can be here helping in some way and getting people involved and getting women into classes, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, and I think that I think anytime you can add a woman's touch or the viewpoint that a woman brings to like the creativity side or even just banging nails. I mean, the fact personally I have a person working for me as a woman carpenter, so there's no difference. I mean, she's as capable as anyone, and she's actually a lead on our team now. So she's no longer in the mid carpentry, but she's actually at the top.
Right.
So I think it's really important that people start to embrace that and not shy away from their abilities that are developable along the lines of carpentry.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's great that Hammerstone gives women an opportunity that most women don't have, and especially like growing up as a girl, you don't see a lot of women carpenters, so you don't think it's an option.
Yeah.
So I think Hammerstone's trying to also involve girls as well as women in getting involved in the trades. So that's awesome.
And you have classes available here today for women, right?
Right. They're building in the courtyard right now. They're starting framing. So
right.
Yeah.
And your, Maria is actually the one leading the class, right?
Right.
She's the teacher of the class for carpentry,
yes.
Which I think is fabulous.
Yeah, so she runs the school, and then she also has her own private construction business that she does as well. So.
Well, thank you for being willing to come on the show and to share sort of the hope for women who would like to pick up the tools and be good around their house and maybe even build a house.
Right on.
All right.
Thank you.
We're here with Vera Struck. She's the owner of the Silver Bullet Home. Is that right? Silver Bullet Tiny Home. And this home is built and designed with biomimicry. I'm going to let Vera tell you about that. But before we do, let's get to know Vera a little bit. So Vera, Tell the audience, if you would, what excited you at first about tiny houses?
Well, I've been following the movement for about 10 years, and I found myself in a position after paying a fortune of medical bills. I needed to find housing that was affordable, non-toxic, and I, of course, wanted to live a zero-waste lifestyle because I'm a sustainability educator. So what I did is I took a course from one of the organizers here, Derek Diedrichsen, 6 years ago, one of his first workshops.
Yeah, right here in Stoughton,
and
by the way.
I've never, exactly, and
Okay.
he's around here somewhere.
Yeah.
And I've never been the same since. So I learned all about building, and I picked up all these kinds of skills, and I took it from there. I talked to everybody who would listen to me. I designed this entire house based on biomimicry, which means this tiny house breathes like an animal. So it mimics biology, and in that way, this is a 6-year-old tiny house, one of the very few in the country that hasn't suffered from mold. So what that means is I have, without getting into too big of an explanation, an entire air channel between the outer and inner outer sheathing and vapor barrier, and that allows air to dry all the exterior, including the louvers I have up here. These open vents, screened vents, which allow air to go up through the eaves, of course, and through the rain screen baffles and keeps the channel of air through the vented ridge beam.
So before I exit, I just want to ask you one question, and then you can kind of give a whole picture of this house. What's your favorite memory from having been in the movement for tiny houses? One favorite thing that you like, maybe when you were building it?
Meeting the incredible people within the tiny house movement who started this movement. They are mindful, intentful people who've chosen to live a very different lifestyle with a smaller carbon footprint. And it's not because they might be, let's say, close to homelessness or surviving from a disaster. It's because they want to live this way. We chose to live this way.
All right, well,
Okay?
with that as an intro, so let's hand it over to you, and
Okay.
you can talk about the solar panels and
Okay.
all the work you've done with the toilet and the composting and natural things that you do. I really think it's great.
Well, Steve, thanks for having us all
Yeah,
here.
so go for it.
Okay, what you're seeing in front of you are 2 of the 4 panels that are in my very robust 2,000 watt solar system. And over here is the guts of the system, which basically, in here, all my PV from the solar panels comes in here, and this goes into an inverter, which I'll show you in a sec. This connects from the power into my house over there. So what you've got in here are 3 large batteries, which allow me 720 amp hours of power. And this is my circuit breaker. There's another one under there because this system handles a lot of electricity. I've got my pure sine wave inverter in here. I'm not sure if you can see it. And my digital controller, which tells me at all times whether I am pulling bulk rate or the panels are resting, etc. So I always know how much voltage I can pull. There's 3 huge 150-pound batteries here for the 750 amp hours. There's also 2 RV batteries, so that wherever I stop on the side of the road, I always have lights or 12-volt power for at least a week. Even if I'm not, there's no sun, it's all snow or something. Okay, I'd also like to point out another sustainable issue about the house. So I'm going to head for my water harvesting. What I've done here is put a 65-gallon water harvesting container. It's on a base. It has a wonderful, this one is my 2nd generation one, has a wonderful area for your plants. It has 2 spigots for you to siphon water off of. And what happens here, these these gutters are in travel mode right now. And so they are not out under the eaves, they are just pushed under, but you still get the idea of what it's like to water harvest this. And when it's in its correct mode to collect water, those vents are unsecured, pulled off, and they slide right up under the eaves. But because of the DMV, and when I was traveling a year doing a tour across the US, 17,000 miles, they needed a special position, otherwise they would have been clipped off by a semi and been illegal over the limit of 8 feet 6 width. One of the reasons I named my tiny house the Silver Bullet Tiny House is that it's part of my solution to designing my own sustainable tiny life. Do you want to come inside just a little bit? I'll tell you a little bit more. What you're seeing out here are these wonderful Tough-Tex polycarbonate panels which help insulate my outer deck during the winter. This entire piece here actually swings up on a piano hinge and gets supported over an 8-foot by 8-foot deck at home. One thing I wanted to point out to you is how much reclamation work I do to raise funds for sustainable lifestyle education for our scholarships. I founded TerraBlueTeams.org, and what we do is all kinds of eco-fashion and eco-couture. What you're seeing here are Sunday New York Times newspapers that I made into a huge ball of yarn. And up here you can see my knitting needles that actually are broomsticks that I whittled to make into knitting needles. So that's one of the ways I raise funds. I also make reclamation jewelry, and all of 78% of everything in here is recycled, reclaimed, repurposed, or given to me. This entire house cost $19,820, not including labor. That's a $6,000 solar system, $4,500 trailer, and the rest is materials and stainless steel screws and all that cool stuff. So as I step back here, what I'm going to talk about for a second is how you can reclaim different resources in building your tiny house. Right here you can see I'm a wine drinker. So one of my drawers, for example, with the silverware, this is a Christmas gift wine container. And you can guess all my kitchen drawers, of course, are wine crates. And one thing you can't see, because you can't come all the way in here, is my shower curtain. My infamous shower curtain, which is made from Poland Springs 2.5-gallon water bottles, that while I'm watching TV occasionally, on my Netflix binging, I put together with fishing line, because I'm a fisher person. What you can't see in here is my urine diverting compost toilet and my tiny kitchen. And what I do with my compost toilet is I have 6 different compost bins at home: anaerobic, aerobic, red worm vermicomposting, and 3 humanure 2-year each bins. So I actually sequester my own carbon, which is really what reducing a carbon footprint is all about, along with all the zero waste practices. Thanks for coming.
I'd like to show you another variation of tiny house. I'm in front of what's called a schoolie. And Julie Snyder and Ben are the proud owners of this house, which is actually a school bus converted. So Kat, as her nickname is, will be showing you in a second what this is all about. So let's knock on the door and see if Kat's home. And in fact, she is. So
Hello,
Kat,
come on in.
we're going to hand it over to you.
Okay.
And tell us all about this beautiful home.
All right, come on in. Okay, welcome to my tiny home on wheels. This is technically called a schoolie. It's a school bus that's been converted into an RV. And the reason I did that was because school buses are very solid vehicles. They're very well maintained, and they go pretty cheap because the school district has to retire them at about 10 years or 100,000 miles. So this one had about 101,000 miles on it when I got it. It's a really great engine, and I did my research and found like the best school bus. The only thing that was wrong with it was I had to replace the gas tank because it was full of holes. So that was expensive, but it was worth it. So we built it out the way we wanted. We took all the seats out and ripped up the floor. We put in, this is a repurposed dresser for my old bedroom. My partner built these benches. This table drops down and it becomes a bed for 2. This is my stove. It's a kitchen, so I can cook in here. My double sink is a repurposed sink from a reuse recycle place. Right now I don't have a plumbing system, but I have the 5-gallon jugs which I fill with water, and it has a pump on it, so I just do soapy hot and a rinse water, and that's how I do my dishes. This is a wood burning stove. It's called a Cubic Mini, and it's the Grizzly. Believe it or not, this is the large one. They have a smaller one than this, and it's a double-walled steel built stove, and a lot of the schoolies and the RVs and also boats are buying these. They're buying them from Canada because they're very safe and they're very efficient. This could heat 400 square feet, and I'm about 200 square feet. So we tested it outside to make sure that it was good, and it's been seasoned, so there's no off-gassing. And I can't wait to use it. We have to cut a hole in the ceiling though. That's the only thing that we have left to do. But I have all the, the extra length of pipe and things to make it so that we can vent it to the outside. But I'm really excited about it because last year I didn't have a real good source of heat and I was very cold. This is an antique that my stepmother gave me, and I cut it down slightly to its oak. She refinished it, and had been sitting in her garage forever, and this time she just gave it to me, and now it's on the bus. Everything is storage. There's lots of storage. There's storage under here, there's storage under the benches, storage under this bed. This is going to be my bathtub. It's one of those troughs that they have on the farms, and I'm going to sink it into the floor a bit so there's some more headroom because there's a lot of tall people in my family. And I'm going to build a wall here, and the entrance will be here, so when the wood burning stove is on, it'll be nice and toasty warm when we have showers and baths. I put cedar lining on the walls so that it smells nice when the water's hot. This is something that I bought at a reused recycle place, and I'm going to repurpose it as a wall for the bathroom. I have bunk beds for my kids. I have 3 kids, but they're all big. So when they're on the bus, they each have a place to sleep. My son sleeps here, my middle child, who's 19, sleeps here, and my oldest daughter sleeps over in the drop-down kitchen area. Okay, so this is a composting toilet. I made this with a kitty litter next to it because I wanted everything in the same place, so it's just easy to clean. And there's a separator so that the urine is diverted into a separate bin, and that's emptied into a toilet, and everything else is composted. So my bedroom is queen size bed, storage under here and storage under here, and the middle is open so that when the bed's not in use, we can actually make it into a living room and have access straight to the back. So I'm still working on it. There's insulation in the ceiling, but I haven't put up, I'm going to put more of these boards up so it goes all the way across. You can see kind of the process here. I made a little closet because all my clothes were on the floor and now they're hanging up, which is great. And this is a repurposed dresser. I cut the legs off so that it wasn't space underneath, and I dropped it down and put a bookshelf on top. So I'm just trying to make the most of all the space that I have. It's a tiny little house, but it works. It's functional, and I've lived in it for a year in New York City. So I'm doing it. I got rid of a lot of stuff, but I love it.
Thank you for joining us on this wonderful tour of the Tiny House Festival here in Stoughton. As you can see, the ingenuity and creativity of the people in this movement is amazing. We hope that you can take some time and think about affordability, sustainability, and the prosperity that can create, and the creativity that comes along with it. And hope you really enjoyed the whole show and got some great ideas. We want to thank Miranda's Hearth for their wonderful input into this great event, and all of the wonderful people who supported us through. Thanks very much also to Stoughton Media Access Cable, Gina Kozman in the background, Jeff Pickett directing me and hoping I say the right thing. So have a great day.